Revelation 2289. From the 4th of April 1942. God is love. Mystery of love. The greatest secret is God's love, and this secret can only be revealed through love. That is, only the human being who is loving himself is able to understand divine love. Every loving, spiritual thought is an emanation of God, who is love in himself. And the willingness to accept such a thought, that is, to conduct it from the heart, where it is born, into the brain, that is, to appropriate it to a certain extent, is the readiness to receive this emanation of God's love. For the willingness of the heart is the prerequisite for God's love to become effective. God is love. This is a mystery and will remain a mystery for people as long as they belong to this earth and often also in the beyond. For love appears to them as a concept with which a being has to be associated. Love appears to them as the characterization of a being, and yet love is the being itself. Love is something spiritual which does not explain the nature of being but is in itself something being-like. Love is the good, the divine, if the word is applied to people. Whereas God himself can only be imagined as love, but this only becomes comprehensible to people who are so permeated by love themselves that they also feel God's closeness in the activity of love. For what they now feel is again only love. And yet they are now close to God because God and love are one. Everything that forms itself into love is in intimate connection with God, that is, the forming into love is an adjustment of the hitherto imperfect to the perfect. Love is something perfect. God is perfection, so love and God must be one. Lack of love, however, is a state of imperfection. It is also a state of being distant from God. Because God cannot be imagined without love. Therefore an activity of love will always trigger a feeling of happiness, and this is the nearness of God which the soul also feels tangibly. Consequently every increased activity of love must also express itself in an increased feeling of happiness, in a peace and powerful self-awareness, because all this is divine, that is, it is proof of God's nearness, which can only have an effect in a spiritual way, thus in feelings of the soul, not in the well-being of the body. God's nearness produces love again, for since God is love in himself, his presence must express itself again in a feeling of love. And this love flows back to God again as its origin. The human being who has become love, that is his soul, unites with God. Love flows to love, and thus the unification of the being with the original entity, which in itself is only love, takes place. Amen.